Okay, without further ado, let's get into the NFC South draft analysis. And starting first was the last place team in the NFC South, and that was the Carolina Panthers. And they had the 7th pick in the NFL draft this year, and with their first round pick, they chose Derek Brown, the defensive tackle out of Auburn. I gave the pick an A. Brown was pretty much a menace while he was at Auburn. He has a crazy combination of speed, strength, and athleticism to make him really kind of a rare find. So I would say, with all of his positives on the field, all his techniques, all his skills, he's only going to get better. He's going to polish them. And I would say, bringing to the table as a year one starter, he's going to bring just the drive, the motivation, big playmaking, run support. May get in there, do a little bit of pass rush, but he'll be a plug, no doubt, in the middle. And I think he'll only get better. And I think just over time, he's just going to refine his skills on his way to becoming probably a multi-time Pro Bowler in this league. So it was a good pick for Carolina, best available and slightly in need. So it was a good pick for them. With their second round, 38th overall pick, they chose Yetur Gross-Matos, defensive end out of Penn State. I gave this pick a B minus. Now this grade doesn't reflect Gross-Matos as much as it does just where and who they're pick, or the position I should say they're picking. You know, they went back to defensive end, and I'm not, or back to defensive line, because the first one defense have. And I'm not saying that it's not a need, but to address the same set, I guess you could say, back to back, I felt like that was a mistake. I feel like they have bigger needs. Their offense kind of lacks explosion other than Christian McCaffrey. It's an early pick in the second round. You could probably still get a good playmaker. They may have wanted to maybe even think about investing in quarterbacks, and they could have even done that with their first round, but that's, whatever they want to do. But I think this was a bad strategy going back to defensive line. But that being said, I think Gross-Matos, he was really good at Penn State his last 2 years, both as a starter. He's got a good combination of size, athleticism, and agility for a defensive end. And I think his skills and techniques, while they're not quite where they need to be yet, I think as he gets more games, more starts under his belt, I think he'll develop into a nice pass rusher. Probably at peak max, get you on average 8, maybe a little bit more than 8 sacks a year. So not a bad pick, but I think they could have gone for a few other things with that pick. So interesting decision. But they had another second round pick. It was 64th overall, and with that they addressed their secondary issues and needs by drafting Jeremy Chin, defensive back out of Southern Illinois. With it, I gave this pick a B plus. I think if Chin can play like he did at Northern Illinois, then I think it'll be a great pick, no doubt looking back, but he'll be a great player. I think the biggest question, obviously, with Chin is, can he recreate the success that he had in the FCS with harder competition, not even FBS, but now NFL competition? So that's obviously the biggest question. There's no questioning his size, strength, and speed and stature, especially as a defensive back. His coverage skills are pretty good, but can that coverage, is he still going to be spectacular? Will he still match up against the wide receivers best? And so overall, we don't really know, but I would say that year one, year two, I think he'll be a big help, simply just because the secondary in Carolina is pretty weak. So hopefully he could develop into a nice player and maybe be a franchise player in the backfield for Carolina. They did not have a third round pick, so Carolina's next pick was in the fourth round, 113th overall, in which they picked Troy Pride Jr., cornerback out of Notre Dame. It was a good pick in my opinion. I gave this a B. Uh, Pride is more of a athlete than he is a football player. He played track, or he ran track at Notre Dame, and that is very obvious with his athletic attributes. He's extremely fast, good size. He's got all the athletic attributes you would want. However, I think the football skills he lacks in that department, and that's not saying he can't improve. I think more experience could really change and just development can really change how he plays. He is not bad in zone coverage. Man coverage is a little bad, and when he gets going in the more deep or complex routes, he kind of gets lost. So again, I think experience and just over time, I think he'll be more confident, better player. He also was no big help in the run support department, but again, that could come with time and better tackling techniques and so forth, so that he has more confidence to go up there without fears of maybe getting beat or missing the tackle. So overall, not a bad pick. It's definitely a need, and they went back at it, so back-to-back defensive backs, and it was a good pick. That takes us to their 5th round, 152nd overall pick, in Kenny Robinson, safety out of West Virginia. I gave this pick a B+. The only reason I wouldn't give it an A is because of the issue he had at West Virginia, and I'll get to that in a second. But at almost 6'3", almost 200 pounds, there's a lot to like about Robinson at safety. In 2018, he had a great year for West Virginia, but however, in 2019, due to violating the code of conduct, I believe it was academic fraud or something like that, which is not really what you want to hear out of a young prospect. However, he did go to the XFL. He did very well in the 5 games he played. 20 plus tackles, 2 interceptions. So very good while he was in the XFL until that got shut down. So I think, as a good tackler, he's good in zone. And I think it's a good find for the 5th round. This is a guy who's now played at the college level and semi-professional, I guess you could call it. I wouldn't quite call XFL the cream of the crop, but at least he had that experience against those guys, so I would say that is actually a plus for him, and to get somebody like him in the 5th round, I think that's a bonus, because, at least he's played outside of college, so I like the pick. Hopefully he doesn't have any more issues off the field, but overall I think it was a good pick. And another need for them after losing Eric Reed. In their next pick, it was a 6th round, 184th overall pick. They picked Bravion Roy, defensive tackle out of Baylor. I gave this pick a C- because, frankly, this is a common theme for Carolina in this draft. But again, they went back to defensive line. They're drafting as though they have no other needs, which is not true at all. Roy was not good except for his senior year, and I think with his lack of athleticism and athletic traits, that at the best he'll be a backup. I didn't have much more to say on Roy. I just wasn't pleased with the pick. I don't think they had offensive needs, and they didn't address them, and so I wasn't a fan of that pick. Going back to the defensive line for the 3rd time, they could have toiled around with a linebacker. They lost Kuechly, and their linebacker positions aren't too strong anyway. But they didn't do that, and they chose to go with Roy, defensive tackle. I would disagree, and that's why I gave it a C-. With their last pick in the 7th round, 221st overall, they drafted Stanley Thomas Oliver, cornerback out of FIU. I gave this pick a B+. I think it's a good pick in the 7th round. Thomas Oliver was a former wide receiver turned corner for the last 2 years, and he's still learning the position. And I think the thing you have to like about it is he has over 90 tackles in that 2 years, 18 pass deflected, 2 interceptions. So he's only improving at the position. He's still young at the position. He has that wide receiver experience, which I think is a good thing. Richard Sherman was another former wide receiver turned corner. I think it's not a bad move because they've played it before, and it just helps when you're going downfield and playing wide receivers all the time. If you've actually played that position, gets you to know your opponent that much better. So, or what they might be thinking, or etc. So overall, I think it's a good pick for the 7th round. It is a need, but it's also the 3rd or 4th time they pick defensive back, and that's why overall I had to give the Panthers a C, just a C, because they drafted, I believe it was strictly all defense, and really just 2 areas of football. I don't know if they were aware of that or they were just thinking best available on defense. Maybe they didn't want to address any offensive needs. Maybe they didn't think they had offensive needs. But in that, I couldn't disagree more. I think, drafting all defensive backs and all defensive linemen is a huge mistake. They had offensive lineman needs. They could have drafted a wide receiver. They could have gotten a linebacker. You could have even drafted a quarterback to develop. I think good ones went all the way until the 5th round, until Fromm was picked. So overall, I think it was a mistake to just draft all defensive backs and defensive linemen. So I had to give it a C, which came in good for last in the NFC South. And coming up next, we'll move to the 3rd to last finishing team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as they went 7-9. So we will get to them coming up next. And stay tuned.